This is Chapter 10, Lesson 8, Circumference and Area of a Circle. This is something that you all have learned before. I taught this to you prior to going on maternity leave, and I'm going to teach it to you one more time again because you are going to need this it is a base of geometry. You're going to need this. So, the Navy Pier Ferris wheel in Chicago, Illinois has a diameter of 140 feet. So I know my diameter equals 140. The circumference of the circle of the wheel is about 440 feet. Circumference equals 440 feet. What is the ratio of the circumference of the wheel to its diameter? Well, I know that for ratio, when I'm looking for ratio, I always put my first, what it's asking for, on top. So my circumference is on top, so I have 440 of the wheel to its diameter. The diameter is 140, so my ratio from my circumference to my diameter is 440 to 140. And again, the distance around a circle is called its circumference. It's a fancy way of saying perimeter. So this is my ratio. So 440 divided by 140. If you have a calculator handy, I suggest you put that in your calculator, or you can divide it out. But it will take you a very, very long time because it's actually a repeating decimal. What happens is 440 divided by 140 will equal pi, which is not a repeating decimal, non-terminating decimal. I'm sorry. And that makes sense, and that's how you get the equation. Circumference equals pi times diameter. And if I did circumference divided by diameter, I should get pi, and I do. And this problem was to prove to you the formula, and you should know the formula. So let's go over it just a little bit. So the little paragraph that's underneath this picture is just restating what I said. Circumference equals pi times diameter. If I manipulate my equation to solve for pi, that means that it would just be circumference divided by diameter will always give me pi. This is your base equation that you need to know. You don't need to know the other equation, because if you know this equation, you can always manipulate to solve for C, or to solve for D, or to solve for pi. So let's just go over. Circumference is the perimeter of the circle. It's around. Area is inside the circle, of course. Diameter is from one end of the circle to the other. And radius is half the diameter. It just shows it on the side of the diameter, just so you can see it better. It is 49.04 equals r squared. Right here in my question it says round to the nearest whole number. I'm going to go ahead and round right now because I'm about to find the square root, because I know that if I'm squaring something, in order to get rid of the square, I have to find the square root. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So the square root of 49, the square root of r squared, and this goes away. The square root of 49 is 7, so my radius equals 7. So if I go back to my equation, it's asking for my diameter. If I know my radius is 7, what is my diameter? Well, my diameter will equal 14. Because my radius is half the diameter, 14 feet. And it's not squared because diameter isn't two-dimensional. It is simply, diameter is simply a line. Okay, so this is a little bit more difficult than what you learned. Well, it is the same thing that you've been learning whenever I taught you circumference and area. It just goes up one more step. Okay, a round garden has an area of 154 square feet. Find its diameter. I don't want you to use the pi key on your calculator. Round to the nearest whole number. So a round garden has an area, and I know I'm looking for area. I know my two equations for circle. My first one is circumference equals pi times diameter. And my other one, and this is the one I'm looking for, is area equals pi r squared. So you need to know those two equations. And so my area equals pi times r. Do I know r? No. And I know my area, I'm sorry. So my area equals 154 square feet. And again, that little 2 right here belongs to my feet. It is how I label area. It does not belong to the 154. Too many of you are doing 154 times 154 at the very end, and you don't need to do that. Square feet it's two-dimensional, it's area. So I plug this into my equation where area is. So I get 154 equals, and then I plug in everything I know. Pi, which is 3.14 times r squared, and I'm going to make this a different color. I want my r squared to be by itself, so I'm multiplying pi times r squared, which means to get rid of multiplying, I needed to divide. So I'll divide. And 154 divided by 3.14 is, what I want you to do is, I want you to do number, actually I'm going to do number 2 with you really quick. And then I want you to do number 3 on your own. And I also want you to do number 8. So I'm going to do number 2. Number 8 is like the example that I did just a minute ago. And then number 3 is going to be like the example I'm about to do with you, number 2. So number 2. R equals 82 3/10 kilometers, and C equals what? Well, if I know I'm looking for C, which is circumference, I need to use my equation. Circumference equals pi times diameter. Circumference equals pi times, well, if I know my radius equals 82 3/10, then my diameter has to equal twice that, so I'm going to do 82 3/10 times 2. And I get 164 6/10. So circumference equals pi times 164 6/10. So then I multiply 3.14 times 164 6/10. I'm going to make this smaller so I can finish it. And when I multiply that out, I should get circumference equals 516 844 thousandths. And does it say it around? It doesn't, and this is kilometers. So all this one, all you had to do is plug and chug, all you had to do was multiply. And I know all of you know how to multiply. You need to be practicing multiplying decimals because a lot of you struggle with that. Tomorrow when you come into class, I'll check number 3 and number 8.